Good morning and welcome to Wake Up with the Consciousness Café. My name is Lisa Ferraro, the founder and spiritual director of SoulCall Global. This morning, I am so thrilled to share a real gem of the Columbus, Ohio area in the art of pottery, fine art, and ceramics. Please welcome Eric Rausch.
Hi.
Hey, Eric.
Thanks for having me.
Oh my God, I'm so excited. We could talk about this in a little bit, but I'm actually sipping water from one of your beautiful creations. And with a Bachelor of Fine Arts from the Ohio State
Yes.
University. You could be like, OH.
I know, right? I guess you got to say that. You have to say the as well because it's officially in the name. So it's not my fault.
No, it's not. It's really fun. But, we were talking a little bit right before we started this morning, and I've got some of your bowls, and I've got another cup, and I've got a couple plates. And I was just sharing with you how much I migrate to these. Of all of the things I have, you could actually feel the beautiful energy you permeate into these. You could tell it's your soul's passion. When did you recognize, like with a bachelor's in fine arts, you could have gone in many directions, I think. When did you realize it was ceramics that called to you?
Well, I would say it was before I committed to getting a Bachelor of Fine Arts in Ceramics in one sense, because it just came naturally to me. And I never really felt like much came naturally to me. So I was in high school, probably a freshman in high school, if my memory serves me, and I always enjoyed art class. And from before that, as a kid, I was always making sculptures, wire sculptures. I remember when I was like 10, having a lot of fun making little figures out of wire and wrapping it up. So I was always like into that kind of making things. And then in high school, I was in clay class and I was on the potter's wheel, and I made the first time I sat there, I made a little pot that went out and kind of went in at the neck and then back out. And while I was on the potter's wheel, I pulled the neck out a little bit and pushed it back in, and I pulled it out, and I did that like 2 or 3 times. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. And I remember around that time, maybe in that moment, thinking like, oh, I'm pretty good at this, and not everybody around me is good at this. Like I could tell that there was something, I connected to it right away.
Yeah.
So I enjoyed it in high school, and then for college, I was college bound, but I didn't know what to do about it. I didn't have any idea of art school. Certainly, I applied to state schools, thinking undecided.
Yeah.
And there's kind of a funny story with that. When I was undecided at orientation weekend at Ohio University, where I went for 1 year before I transferred to Ohio State. At orientation, they said, okay, so math majors go this way, science majors this way, undecided over here, business, art, social work. And I thought, oh, well, this is when we choose. So I thought, oh, art, I'll walk with them. So I just walked with the art majors. And the funny part is, of course, my parents were there, and my dad, the story is my dad leaned over to my mom, but why are we only walking through the art studios? And she said, I think Eric just chose his major as art. So I went with art right away. But you had asked about ceramics. I apologize, the question's getting long, but this
This is great. It's always like a series of things that lead us.
Yeah, it's the one question is it's kind of a long journey. So we'll get there. So I went into Ohio University undecided, became an art major through that way, and spent a year there thinking I might do photography, photojournalism. I have very supportive parents, but I also have the common knowledge that there's not many jobs in the art world. So, naively at the time thought, well, photojournalism is a job. So I like taking photographs. I always had a camera with me everywhere I went. And then I got a C in photography, but I stayed in the ceramic studio until 4 a.m. every night to try to make 10-inch tall cylinders, because that was really important to me to get that right. And skip forward the year I transferred to Ohio State the following year, and I actually needed a guidance counselor in the room. She goes, I'm looking at your transcripts. You got a C in photography, but you took all of the clay classes and got better grades in those. And so it was that moment, you know, and
Yeah.
she's someone that I should thank karmatically for being in the right place at the right time and just saying the right, because I didn't know, even though it was right in front of me. So then after transferring to Ohio State, I had 4 years there of studying ceramics, studying clay, and I just fell more and more in love with it.
Yeah.
I was challenged at Ohio State to become a conceptual artist of sorts because of the nature of the program, and it was high academia learning, I'll say.
Right.
Highly academic versus functional pottery is what I'm trying to illustrate. Sort of all I wanted to do was make nice things. That's just always been my life's goal, is to make nice things.
You know, it's interesting in your sharing, and I thank you for filling in those steps, because some people think by following your heart's passion that you always are just crystal clear about it. But what's so telling in your story that I appreciated is that you spent 10 hours or till the wee hours of the morning getting 10 cylinders. It was, and you were willing to do something for work, but then your passion kept pulling you. And then all of a sudden, you have somebody else looking at it that says, this is pretty obvious here. You know, I was thinking I was glad you didn't say, I got inspired by that movie Ghost from a million years ago. No, I'm just kidding.
That movie comes up all the time. And I just recently changed my opinion on it because my wife is an artist as well. And she goes, there's no way Demi Moore could throw that pot. And I just heard her interviewed maybe a year ago, and she talked about how she took pottery lessons for months so she could actually throw on the wheel. And I was like, oh, Demi Moore, you're so good. Who knew she actually threw that pot?
Yes. And so now you've got a successful pottery studio called the Kiln Room, very successful. And you've been on billboards throughout the city. You might have recognized Eric's face from the billboards. So the south side of Columbus is baddest part of town, and you're in the Kiln Room studio. Tell us what it's like to own your own studio and to partake in the inspiration, like with Demi Moore taking classes to learn how to be able to do that. Other people coming in feeling like, this is something I put down, but I feel like I can actually do this. And what's it like having your own studio now, and successful, I might add, and just doing what you love every day?
Well, I will hear you say the word successful, and I will accept that. But it still feels so. It's so much that I feel always that I'm learning as I go along, and I want to answer that question you just asked in full, because there's a lot there about the people who work in the studio with me, my students, and when they come to the craft and what it gives them, and it's my utmost joy to share with them what clay gives me, which is an ability to be mindful on a daily basis, just making mugs. I have to make these mugs, so I can't think about anything but this clay while I'm doing it. And it helps with so many aspects of the human condition, that it does feel like important work. And to go back to what you said about it being successful, is I can look around the studio and I can see this is exactly what I've been dreaming of. This is what I've been working for more than a dozen years since graduation. After college, I had a pretty clear view of what I wanted. I just didn't know how to get it. And that touches on something you said earlier, which is so important too, is that when people look at a story like mine, you're inclined to, oh, that happened quick, or you must have been so aware of what you wanted so early on. And it's a little bit like that, but it's more so just not allowing the natural fear that stops most people from just going for what they want to do. I live daily with that fear, and over the decade plus of living with that fear, you first have to accept it, and then you need to push through while accepting it. You can't just push it aside. That fear comes from somewhere. You might be putting up your life savings. Right. You might be, you have so many years on this life to build a career, and if you're focusing on yourself, that's inherently pretty risky, and you should be aware of the risks, and maybe some of those fears should be something that you listen to at night.
You know, what's interesting, what you're saying is, I'm going to flip to the philosophy of what you're putting forth right here in such a grounded, articulate way. But like if we flipped it into the philosophy of it, we're talking about journeys. And I love what you said about being present with each lump of clay that you start with, or each square or block, or whatever the shape is you begin with. It's a journey of deep listening and awareness. You've got to be, it's like, it is, each lump of clay is like a meditation. Maybe we can, each day is like a meditation, being fully present with what is and the potential for what can be, but not stopping when it looks like, oh, I don't know. You probably don't do that as much as somebody like I would these days, but I'm going to take that,
Maybe
a
not.
class or then just to see what it's like. But the journey from the lump to the finished product, it's different every time, right?
It is. It is. My challenge right now with the production studio is to make quality results repeated over and over again. But what I love about the clay is that each time it's slightly different. So that's why it's such a challenge to make it the same white on the planter every time. But the change, I really enjoy making a set of mugs and just starting with the same pound of clay, and I look at the same shape in my mind before and as I'm throwing it. And sometimes I'll even measure the height to make sure they're the same, but to allow for just a little bit of change in between. I think it's just kind of everything that's great in the world. When you stop and smell the roses, you see all their little imperfections and you realize they're so beautiful because of those things. Whereas just intellectually, you think you're beautiful in spite of those imperfections. So then you take it and you go to art school for it, and you start doing things where you throw a cylinder and then you go, I'm going to put that little divot in the side so that I interrupt this curve that's happening, and put this little whoop in there. And, cause that's the beauty in life. Humans make squares, we make sidewalk squares, and then the grass grows over, and it's just so much more beautiful once that interaction is happening.
I love that.
You got to celebrate that stuff.
I appreciate that. I'd almost like to pause and just take that in. That was a mini little sermon. We might even grab that. I know it's so perfect, but I don't know if you can see the little divot. That's what I love about this, is just that. I don't know why does it make such a big, it's just that simple little thing. How did that?
I'm gonna tell you a story. It's gonna sound maybe contrarian, but it really is what's beautiful in life. Is I made those cups like that for a number of years while I was at the Cultural Arts Center. So a few of them went through the Cultural Arts Center gift shop, and somebody that I knew there for years, a lovely woman that volunteered, she took various classes, and just the sweetest demeanor. And she bought one and she had it at home, and she told me she bought it. And I was like, oh, that's so great. I'm thankful. She came back and she goes, why do you put the divot in there? And I said something about the flow of and she goes, I just don't like the divot. And I thought I actually appreciated that feedback so much, because she still uses the cup and she still loves the cup, but it was just like the dialogue of like, and just the sweetest lady, she just doesn't like the divot. And that to me is, I don't know, I just I find happiness when I learn to roll with the punches, and with owning the business, some of the punches are lots of money these days, and it feels sometimes like, oh, that's something I can't get over. And then it's like, once you calm down and come up with a solution, then usually you look back and you go, why did I get so upset? So this lady doesn't like the divots. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing, like.
And, as musicians, it's a similar thing. Like, we all have our tastes and we all have our preferences, but it doesn't make one thing all the best and all the not so great. And that's what it is so subjective. Art is. And tell us what your website is. We would like to send people to learn more about you.
Okay, well, I should send people to kilnroomcolumbus.com or ericrausch.com.
Okay.
Both of those websites with contact forms that go right to my email. So that's
We're,
easy.
and we
I
are,
also have Instagram. If I can share my Instagram, that's at Eric Rausch Art and at Kiln Room. So pretty simple.
and we're so excited because June 27th, our Art in the Park is going to feature you teaching us with clay tiles. I think we're going to make a few of those. We're going to be more information on soulcallglobal.org's website. But Eric Rausch, thank you for taking the time to share your passion with us this morning.
Thank you.
Backstory of you and the beautiful works you create. And looking forward to playing with you in the park and your beautiful family.
Well, thank you. You said it would be fun, and you were right. This was fun.
Thank
Have
you.
a good day.
We'll have you back again. And for
All right,
those of you
sounds good.
joining us, thank you again for joining us. And remember, wherever you are on the planet, you are loved. Peace and blessings.